By the pure act of drawing, I attain a void, the pleasure of the potential felt by the striking the blank page with the stylus and the redemptive satisfaction of solving problems. This is how I maintain my humanity. I escape today's world of commercialism, noise, and clutter, and I draw. Ever since I can remember, I've been drawing. The first drawings I recall were renderings inspired by the many icons in my family's house. Then, when I was attending parochial elementary school, I did renderings of pictures that began the chapters of each Greek history in the history books. So for my early teens, I drew all the time. I doodled compulsively, continuously. Always a pen at hand, I drew from my surroundings. I drew in the streets, drew in the subways, but I seemed to strongly respond to sculpture. I always come back to sculpture. I was fascinated by the sensation of volume it had and the space it occupied. So I visited museums, I did drawings of Greco-Roman sculpture at the Met, and I also did drawings from modernist sculptors, Jock Lipschitz, Henry Moore, and David Smith. So my first inspirations, the presence and likeness of the icons and the volumetric power of sculpture, still drives my work today. Drawing always played a prominent role in my life and remains an integral part of my process. I sketch for research and development, and I do highly realized drawings that portray the individual's physical presence. One of the major technical challenges of constructing a highly developed drawing of a human being is how to maintain the life spirit of that individual and the impression of the life of the sitter as you develop the drawing. Or how to not suck out the lifeblood of the sitter as you render the drawing. Now, the way I do it is I keep moving my gaze, navigating through reference to reference, point of reference, and I do it continuously and throughout, and I do it in a loop. So I wrote, in a 20-minute drawing, in a sense, it's 10 two-minute loop drawings. And this is what I teach, and it's kind of my teaching mantra, my methodology. As students know, I teach students how to visually navigate by not staying in one area, one spot. I call it passage. We used to call them passages when we were kids. So it's the note, the spot, was always a passage. So I teach students how not to get trapped and get myopic and get bogged down. So I tell them start with a reference point, a home base, and continually work out from it and come back to it in a loop so that it keeps you on your toes, it helps you with objectivity, it helps you with mass coordination and mass recognition. So it's a way to make the figures, the human beings, maintain that life feeling, the movement, the subtle movement of life. At the same time, I try not to teach style. I feel self-expression is a given. It's something you can't avoid. You can't help expressing oneself. So what I do is I try to help the student clear their channels in order to be a really good conduit. And so in terms of that, one of the things that I get a lot from students, and particularly because figurative technical things, students always want the Excalibur. So the question posed a lot is, what is the best this or that? And the answer I give might not be the most satisfactory to them at the time. It's what is it best for? But the student that stays with it and keeps developing comes to realize that learning to draw is learning how to communicate one's own ideas. So ultimately, teaching, like making art, for me, every day is like a blank page that I draw on. And so my teaching methodology is constantly being reconsidered and revised. Thank you.
Thank you, Costa. It's a very clearly expressed point of view, and it makes me eager to hear what Frank has to say.
Most of the people in this room have probably been with me at one time or another, and most of them know that my approach to drawing is the foundation by which their thought becomes real. I came to everything about art very late, and my first drawing I ever saw was a piece of work by Rembrandt, who showed me that art can have more than content and spirit. It can have actual life. The thing that I try to give to the students, and I hope I'm successful, is the ability to think beyond, to not worry about making art, but to develop an eye, to use the line to carve out space and structure and volume, and find the energy and power within their own personalities. The idea of finding one's voice is very important, but that voice has to sit on something that will allow the creator to evolve, to develop. Without that, they have not even air. Now, I use any material, including dirt, to draw with. People who have been in some of my demos will watch me pick up a stick and use it to make and create certain lines and energy. When I am done, my purpose is to move that line in and out of the surface so it just doesn't sit. The very energy that each creator has comes from their struggle to understand through the cloud and energy of their own minds a clarity, and that clarity will always come through as they draw. But they have to draw beyond their will. They have to draw within the surface.
Thank you, Frank. Knox, may we hear from you?
When I was a student here, I came across something that was a mode that persisted, and I followed it like a light. And it's a piece from Shakespeare. And it goes, "The poet's eye in a fine frenzy rolling doth glance from heaven to earth and earth to heaven. And from perception bodies forth the shapes of things unknown, and to airy nothing gives a local habitation and a name." So with this as a guide and a goal, when I was still a student here, I left here in 1950, and I said, if I'm going to be responsible as an artist, I want to know everything that has ever been made that is called art. And I did that. I went into Sumerian work, I went into the cave drawing and painting, all of Egyptian art, all of Japanese art, every dynasty of China from the Han, the Shang, the Yuan, the Tang, the Sung, the Ming, and I covered the whole, every aspect of it. All of Impressionism, all of Cubism, the American school, the British school, the German school, anything that was there, and out of that I collated something. First of all, you had to find out who the greatest artist was. Who's the greatest artist? And I said, okay, certainly the greatest artist of all artists is Titian, and then his group Veronese and Tintoretto, and from that group El Greco, and then down into Ogata Koran in China, Seshu, etc. And I found out that art was doing something very different. I'm talking about true art doing something very different than anything else, right? And that art was about itself. And the subject matter of that art was art. And it played with itself, manifested itself, and the astonishing thing is that at the deep root of the whole thing, true art was creating reality. With, for example, a guy I admire very much, and there's a terrific story which we don't have time to go into, Leonardo, who said, all you have to do is hold up nature as a mirror, right? And that was not art. True art came from Titian, who said, art is stronger than nature. Okay? So art begets nature. The provenance of man, the sacred thing is he makes myths and he makes music. There's a Bach and there's a Mozart and there's a Beethoven and there's a Matisse, there's a Cézanne. Okay? So the first thing that you did when you knew who the artists were, you could say it's a process of elimination. You got rid of so many things you didn't have to tend with, right? And you came down with, well, here's Bach, here's Mozart, here's Cézanne, here's Nicolas Poussin, Van Eyck, right? And Shakespeare, and so if you surrounded yourself with that and lived through that and then shared that. Whenever I think of teaching, it's never down to teaching someone something. It is, hey, I just found this thing and let's share it. Look, here it is. Okay? So the basic thing is that art begets art and is different from everything else. It is itself that speaks about itself, and this is what a Cézanne is doing, and that's why the revolution occurred with that. And Matisse said, if Cézanne's right, I'm right. Picasso said, Cézanne is my father. And de Kooning said, everybody thinks that I'm a supercubist. Supercubist, no, it is Cézanne that I work through. So here is the edge of all of this laid out for you, in that from perception bodies forth the shapes of things unknown, and to airy nothing gives a local habitation and a name. Thank you.
Thank you, Knox. Bruce.